Hey, what is up, guys, and welcome back to Football Discussions. And today we are coming at you with a brand new 2021 NFL mock draft and a couple of housekeeping things before we get started. I just want to touch on the fact that we are very close to 1,000 subs. It would mean the world to get to that milestone before the draft. Keep making videos for you guys. Keep making draft content for you guys. So if you want to hit that subscribe button, it's draft content all the time here, and it would mean a lot to me. And the second thing that I wanted to touch on is that I did start a podcast with my buddy. We've had a radio show for a while. I wanted to convert it into kind of a podcast setup. So that's on the channel. I'll link that in the description. We react to a mock draft, Pete Schrager's mock draft during that, and then just talk about the draft as well. It's a draft-based mock. Both of us are big, draft geeks. So if you want to check that out on the channel as well, please do. Trying to get that a little more traction. But regardless, let's jump right into the mock draft, starting off with the number 1 and number 2 overall pick because they're basically locks. Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback out of Clemson, to the Jaguars, and Zach Wilson, the quarterback out of BYU, to the Jets. Again, these are two locks, and the reason that I say the Jets picking Zach Wilson as a lock is because if you look at what happened a few weeks ago, obviously San Fran wanted to trade up, and they offered a similar package that they did to the Dolphins, to the Jets, and that included 3 first-rounders. So if the Jets are declining that trade, it's obviously because they are in love with a prospect. They traded Sam Darnold. All signs are pointing to them drafting a quarterback, and it's going to be Zach Wilson, the quarterback out of BYU. That's not my take. That's everyone's take. Again, I think that, it might be a little crazy to talk about locks, especially not even regarding the number 1 overall pick, but I'm pretty sure that the number 1 and number 2 overall picks are locks. And if you look at Zach Wilson, he's everything that the modern day NFL quarterback is. And what I mean by that is he has the ability to throw off platform, throw crossbody, improvise plays, look downfield while he's out of the pocket. The things that you see Josh Allen do consistently, the things that you see Patrick Mahomes do consistently, the things that you see Aaron Rodgers do consistently. That's what Zach Wilson is. So that's what excites GMs about this prospect currently. I'm not saying he'll be close to the likes of those guys, but I think he has the intangibles that if he falls into the right coaching staff, he certainly could be. He's my number 2 overall prospect in the class, so my number 1 and number 2, going at number 1 and number 2. I think it's fitting. Both prospects are really good, and I think Zach Wilson has the potential to be better than Trevor Lawrence when it's all said and done. At 3, 49ers fans, don't hate me. This is obviously via that Miami trade. Give up 3 first-rounders, and I know you're like, why are we giving up 3 first-rounders for Mac Jones? But it simply feels like they're going Mac Jones. Everyone smarter than me, everyone smarter than you guys watching this video is saying that the insider sources that have actual inside information are saying that it sounds like Mac Jones. Adam Schefter said he would be surprised if Mac Jones wasn't the 3rd overall pick. So if you want to dive a little deeper into this, why Mac Jones? I think it's, Kyle Shanahan has a type at quarterback. There's a reason that he was so successful in Atlanta with Matt Ryan, right? It's the similar type of player that Mac Jones is. They went to the Super Bowl. Matt Ryan had an MVP season under Shanahan. I think that, he sees a lot of those traits in Mac Jones that he saw in Matt Ryan, and it's the same thing with Washington and Kirk Cousins when he was there, right? Kirk Cousins was playing his best football under Kyle Shanahan. So I think Shanahan really, really likes what Mac Jones is, and that's a quarterback that is very smart. I think you could argue he's the smartest quarterback in the class. I mean, Trevor could, get in there with his football IQ, but I think Mac Jones just understands the game of football so well. He audibled more than any Alabama quarterback ever audible before, Sarkisian said, right? So he's a very smart player, understands the game of football, makes checks at the line of scrimmage, and not only that, but he doesn't turn the football over. I think these are all the things that Kyle Shanahan's looking for in a quarterback, and Mac Jones possesses most of these things, whereas Justin Fields, might not be the smartest NFL quarterback yet, came from a one-read offense in Ohio State. That might raise some concerns for Kyle Shanahan, and then Trey Lance only playing 13 games in the FCS might raise some concerns as well. So that's why I think that Mac Jones is the pick at 3, aside from all the insider information coming out that it sounds like he is. At 4, I think Atlanta's really going to try to trade back here, but I think that they're not going to get the trade package that they want and settle with taking the number 4 overall pick. And what better player to take than Kyle Pitts? And you could argue that, hey, we have Hayden Hurst. Why are we drafting Kyle Pitts? Kyle Pitts isn't a tight end. You can line him up anywhere. I've seen pro comps, Darren Waller, Mike Evans. There's no pro comp to Kyle Pitts because he's the first of his kind. He's a unicorn. He can do anything you ask for him. He can play in the slot. He can play outside of X at wide receiver if you want. And, yeah, he can play tight end as well. So there's so many different places you can line Kyle Pitts up. I think think he's one of the most fun prospects I've ever watched on tape. He's just so dominant. He's a mismatch nightmare. He's a versatile weapon. Shout out Bengal. If you know, you know. But Kyle Pitts to Atlanta at 4. Definitely not a reach. He's the third best prospect in the class. If not, he's 2A and 2B with Zach Wilson, in my opinion. So a very, very fun prospect. Not a reach here for Atlanta. And they get a guy that can boost their offense even more. At 5, personally, I think this is the Penei Sewell spot. I think you got to protect Joe Burrow. But again, mock drafts aren't what I would do. It's what, the people are saying. It's what we're hearing. And it sounds like the Bengals are more focused on getting a weapon. Joe Burrow's lobbying for Jamar Chase to come to Cincinnati. Former LSU teammates had produced one of the most dominant quarterback receiving duo seasons ever. Obviously, Justin Jefferson made that one of the most dominant receiving quarterback and 2 receiving trio ever. I think that Jamar Chase is a really good football player, great athlete, has the ability to get off the line, physical at the line of scrimmage as well. And then, of course, downfield, he's great as well, great route runner. Ran a 4.38. Again, LSU's 40 times were a little suspicious, but I'm guessing that will translate to like a 4.3 maybe, a 4.4 maybe in real life, not the unofficial time, maybe even a 4.3. But it really doesn't matter because he's just such a great athlete. I think that he's a really good football player. Again, I would prefer Penei Sewell here, but Jamar Chase at 5 makes a lot of sense. Pairing up forward quarterback and wide receiver from college in the NFL. Get Joe Burrow, just another weapon. Make the Cincinnati offense a little more dynamic. At 6, kind of a similar thing here, getting 2 former college teammates back together, and I think that was Tua's main problem last year. He wasn't really comfortable in the NFL, and I think it's going to take some time. I don't think it's time to bail on Tua just yet. I didn't really ever understand that mindset. Get rid of Tua, trade for Deshaun Watson. Obviously, Deshaun Watson's miles ahead of Tua, but I think you have a good prospect in Tua, a good quarterback that can develop. I think he just needs to become a little more comfortable, and getting him a former college teammate could also make that very easy. Devontae Smith is, when we talk about his flaw, it's his size. Other than that, Devontae Smith does everything right. He's got the best hands in the class. He's a tremendous route runner. He's great after the catch. I think he's so ready for the NFL, and the size thing is such bullshit. And I think that's more media-driven than it is, GM-driven. I think GMs are probably still high in Devontae Smith. So I think that it's a really good pickup here from Miami. Get a receiver that Tua's comfortable with. This could also be a Waddle spot. This could be a Slater spot if you want to put Austin Jackson at left tackle. Keep Austin Jackson at left tackle and then draft Slater, put him at right tackle. Or Austin Jackson even has the versatility to move to right tackle. So if you wanted to draft Sewell and put him at left tackle, that's certainly a possibility. But it's, with the trade back and then the trade back up, I think Miami is looking for a weapon here at 6, and Devontae Smith is a great one. At 7, this is a Denver Bronco trade up with Detroit. They're trading the 9th overall pick and the 40th overall pick to Detroit for the 7th overall pick to get their quarterback of the future in Justin Fields. As a Broncos fan, I'm sold on quarterback. I've been outspoken about Drew Lock. I hate Drew Lock. I think he's horrible. And getting a quarterback in Justin Fields at 7, I think is well worth the value. I've also been outspoken about my concerns of Justin Fields, but that doesn't mean he's going to be a bad quarterback, and I emphasize that point as well. So just because he does come from a one-read offense, it is a simplified offense, that doesn't mean under a good NFL coaching staff, he can learn to grow. And obviously, Shermer isn't the best OC in the world, but I think Denver has a lot of pieces in place where Justin Fields could come in, start right away, or even compete with Drew Lock right away. I think it's a good pickup here for Denver. And Justin Fields is the point that people thought he was so overrated at the start of the draft prospect, where I think he's becoming, really underrated. He's a really good quarterback, and Denver getting him at 7, I think, is well worth the value. Yeah, they had to give up a second rounder, but that's because I think Detroit is going to be getting so many trade offers that Denver's going to kind of have to give up a haul even to just trade up 2 picks. So I think it's a good deal for both sides. Detroit doesn't need to take a player at 7. The next 2 picks aren't going to be a receiver, and they can just trade back or down 2 picks, pick up another second rounder, and draft a receiver at 9. At 8, this is going to be the Penei Sewell spot, offensive tackle out of Oregon. A player to go alongside Moton in that Panthers offense. They need a left tackle, Greg Little. Shout out part of my take with the Greg Kittle bit. But regardless, isn't getting it done at left tackle. I think Penei Sewell's your plug-and-play guy right there. Can block for your new franchise quarterback in Sam Darnold, which, by the way, we didn't discuss that trade on the channel, but I think it's actually a good trade. If there's anyone that can make Sam Darnold succeed, it's Joe Brady. So I think that's going to be a really fun pairing. But regardless, Penei Sewell, the offensive tackle out of Oregon, to the Panthers at 8. At 9, just talked about it, Lions trade back, and they still get the player that they would have taken at 7, and it's Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver out of Alabama. Detroit has no receivers at this point in time, so I think they need to emphasize, drafting a few this time around. Obviously, they got Quintus Cephas. I think he's a fine third option. I think you need a better first and second option, and Jalen Waddle certainly provides that. One of the most dynamic players in the class, elite at creating space, and creating separation with that track speed that he possesses. He's a really, really fun prospect, and I think that Detroit getting him at 9 is well worth the value. At 10, we have another trade here, and it's New England trading their first rounder and their second rounder for the 10th overall pick from Dallas. The football team kind of SOL here if they don't trade up in the top 9, because at 10 you have Dallas, at 11 you have New York, and at 12 you have Philadelphia, and obviously there's not going to be any interdivisional trading, so the football team's going to have to try to trade up for a quarterback in the top 10 if they want one, and unfortunately in this mock they don't, and New England capitalizes on that opportunity by trading up and getting Trey Lance, the quarterback out of North Dakota State, a really, really good prospect. I think people are trying to make an argument that at least one of these quarterbacks are going to be bad, and the odds might be in the favor of that, but there's a real chance that all of these quarterbacks can be good football players. I think Trey Lance falls into that category. Sure, he's the 5th one taken in this mock, but he's still a good player. Got that running ability. I think he is the best runner in this class, and he also has elite arm strength. I think that's overlooked. Again, 13 FCS games is a little concerning, but I think overall Trey Lance is a fun prospect, a really good player, and yes, you re-signed Cam Newton, but we saw what Cam Newton did last year. The dude doesn't have a shoulder. He threw it to the ground more than he threw it to any receivers, and that wasn't necessarily because his receivers weren't getting open, which was certainly a problem a lot of the time, but also the dude was just inaccurate and bad at football. I hate to say it. It was fun watching Cam Newton in 2015 when he was sick at football. He sucks now. There's no way around that, and yeah, sure, you got him 2 tight ends and Kendrick Bourne, but is it really going to make all that much of a difference? Probably not. I think drafting a quarterback is a good option for the Patriots in this draft. At 11, this comes down to whether you really want a linebacker, because Gettleman loves linebackers, or if you really want a offensive lineman. And I think that the Giants are going to focus on the offensive line, and now it comes down to whether you want a right tackle, because you got Andrew Thomas at left tackle, or your Zeitler replacement. And if you want your Zeitler replacement more than you want the right tackle, you think Soldier can line up for one more year, then you go Elijah Vera Tucker here at 11. But if not, I think Slater's the pick, a really, really good prospect. I think he has the highest floor out of any tackle in the class, and that includes Sewell. I think Sewell obviously has the highest ceiling, but Slater's, the plug-and-play guy that's going to start right away, similar to Andrew Thomas, and I know Andrew Thomas was a little disappointing last year, but I think Slater's kind of a more pure prospect than he ever was, and I think bringing him in certainly helps Daniel Jones. Obviously, the dude fumbles the football a lot. I think you still need a receiver. I've been arguing with Giants fans. Again, I live in a New York area, so there's plenty of Giants fans around me. I argue with them all the time because they're like, our receiving core is set. We got Kenny Galladay. Sterling Shepard's a fine 2 option. Darius Slayton's our 3. If Devontae Smith or Jalen Waddle's on the board and the Giants don't seriously consider taking one of them at 11, I think that would be unfathomable. But the fact of the matter is they're both off the board in this mock, so Slater's the pick at 11. At 12, I think Philly would really like one of the receivers or even Kyle Pitts to fall to this point. But with the trade back, they get a little more value for this year and next year. And, they're still getting a great player, and that's Patrick Surtain, the cornerback out of Alabama. Sure, you brought in Darius Slay. The secondary still sucked last year. Sorry, hate to say it, but it did. So getting Patrick Surtain certainly helps those issues. Best corner in the class, in my opinion. I see J.C. Horn rising up fast. I'm a big fan of Horn as well. But I think Patrick Surtain, again, if you don't look at the offseason process and you just look at what he did on the field at Alabama, he was the most dominant corner out of anyone last year. He's so good, created an island, no one threw his way. He's just a really, really technically sound corner, and the Eagles getting him, I think, is a good fit in Philly. At 13, this is a pick that I didn't really mock ever here. I think that, obviously you could go Christian Darrisaw, you could go Elijah Vera Tucker if you believe he's a offensive tackle in the NFL if you're the Chargers, but you still need a Melvin Ingram replacement, a guy to play alongside Joey Bosa, and I think Jalen Phillips fits that role pretty well. He's a really good prospect. I'm as high as you can be on Jalen Phillips right now. I think he's a top 15 prospect in the class. I think he's well worth a top 15 pick, and he's a really, really good football player. And the Chargers could go Darrisaw here, but it's a deep tackle class, especially in the back end, and so getting a offensive lineman early second round or mid second round, I think is definitely a possibility. You got guys like Leatherwood that could be available then, Eichenberg that can be available then, even Cosme could be available then, right? So there's a bunch of different directions that the Chargers could go here, and I think getting one of the best players available in Jalen Phillips isn't a bad option at all. At 14, this is the Elijah Vera Tucker spot. I'm a huge fan of Elijah Vera Tucker. He's one of my favorite players in the class just based off his versatility. He can really play anywhere on the offensive line. I have him, as you can see, listed as an interior offensive lineman / offensive tackle. I think the Vikings will use him at interior offensive line to start, but you can play him at offensive tackle whenever you want. Obviously contracts are coming up for the Vikings offensive line. It's not the best offensive line in the world, so AVT can just be that block on your offensive line that you can really play anywhere, that guy that can just do anything you need for your offense, and I think Elijah Vera Tucker is that guy. At 15, just mentioned his name, J.C. Horn to the Dallas Cowboys. J.C. Horn's a great athlete. I think that, coming into the draft process, he was a little underrated. Obviously, has always been known as a first-round prospect, but we were talking about, there's a huge gap between Farley, Surtain, and then Horn. I think Horn is a really good player, and the gap was really never that big between him, Surtain, and Farley. Obviously, Farley, with the back injury, is going to drop a little here, but all that aside, I think J.C. Horn's a really good player, and the Cowboys trade back and still get a position that they probably would have addressed that's with Surtain at 10, and instead go Horn at 15. Again, the gap isn't really that big, and I don't think it matters all that much. Cowboys still get a piece in their secondary that can hopefully fix the issues that they had last year. At 16, a small little trade here. I think it makes sense for both sides. Arizona does not have a third-round pick currently, so football team gives them one of those as well as their first-round pick just to move back 3 spots. And Micah Parsons gets to go to the football team and probably make the most deadly front 7 in the NFL. With him still available, I think that the football team is definitely looking at him. Obviously, the top 5 quarterbacks are off the board. They maintain their second-round pick through this trade as well, which would allow them to maybe go Amond in the second round, a Mills in the second round, or even a Trask in the second round if they wanted. So I think there's a lot of flexibility with what the football team can do, but trading up and getting Parsons I think is a fun little trade for them to do and get the best, in my opinion, the best defensive player in the class, and again, just make one of the most lethal front 7s in NFL history. At 17, we go Christian Darrisaw, the offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. The Las Vegas Raiders tore apart their offensive line. They kind of got to build it back together here, and I have them doing that by getting Darrisaw. It's as simple as that. They really don't have any tackles or guards. Actually, they kept Colton Miller, so that's not entirely true, but Gabe Jackson left, Trent Brown left, so I think replacing Trent Brown with Christian Darrisaw is your best bet here if you're Las Vegas. At 18, I'm going Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. I was high on him at the start of the draft process, and then I kind of went low on him, and then I'm very high on him again, and it's because of the pro day. It's because of the versatility that he reminded us that he has. He can play safety. He can play linebacker. He even played D-line at his pro day. He can do it all. He's just the most, I think you could argue, the most versatile defensive player in the entire class, and I think that the Dolphins certainly could use him on defense. He can really line up anywhere. He can be your off-the-ball linebacker, can play that interior linebacker position as well. Can line up at safety, though, too, alongside Eric Rowe or Bobby McCain or whoever they have playing back there right now. So I think Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, a really good prospect, a guy that can, again, play really anywhere on the defense, and, really a good fit for Brian Flores' defense in Miami. At 19, this is via the football team trade. The Arizona Cardinals trade back and get Greg Newsome, cornerback out of Northwestern. I really like Caleb Farley, but again, the back injury is something that's going to keep being a concern and probably going to keep dropping him down draft boards. Greg Newsome is a tremendous prospect, that someone that was overlooked in the beginning of scouting the quarterback class, and I think that the media started to catch on to that as we've seen him rise up very fast, and it's because of the length he possesses, it's because of the athleticism he possesses, and he's also very technically sound. We see it in the Ohio State film versus Justin Fields. I think one of the things that stood out to me most about watching the Ohio State film with Justin Fields versus Northwestern wasn't how bad Justin Fields was that game, but Greg Newsome played very good ball in that game. So I think that this Northwestern prospect is someone that can come in and start right away for Arizona. I think he fits perfectly alongside Byron. He's a guy that can play the outside the boundary, and then you could have whoever playing the nickel, but I think you have your 2 boundary corners set with Greg Newsome and Byron if you go in that direction. 2 guys with great length, great athleticism, and I think he fits the Cardinal scheme really well. At 20, boring pick for the Bears, but they're a boring franchise. I guess you got to protect, your franchise quarterback, Andy Dalton, and get Taven Jenkins, and that's exactly what I do. I think this could be a Jalen Mayfield spot with how much they run the football, but I think Taven Jenkins is the overall better prospect, and that's why I have him going at 20 and not Jalen. At 21, I love this pick, Elijah Moore to the Indianapolis Colts. Elijah Moore is the fourth best receiver, and I think a lot of the time we talk about the top three, and then Elijah Moore, or then Rashad Bateman, or then Kadarius Toney, whoever you have at your four spot. To me, it's the top four receivers in the class, and then everyone else, it's Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, and Jamar Chase in no particular order, and then Elijah Moore grouped right in with those guys. He's one of my favorite prospects in the class. Elite speed, a tremendous route runner, and he uses that little size that he has to go up and get the football. You see him all the time on tape. It shows up. He goes up and contests and gets contested catches. A really good prospect. I'm a huge fan of Elijah Moore. Great athlete. I think he ran in the 4.3s. And just overall one of the most fun prospects in the class. And I think he's going to be like this year's Justin Jefferson, where you kind of like group the top three, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, and CeeDee Lamb together. And then, little old Justin Jefferson was the best receiver out of all of them. I think Elijah Moore could have the same potential to, just pop off this year. You got Pittman last year. Elijah Moore fits perfectly alongside him, and then you got T.Y. Hilton as your third option or your second option, and I think that you're building a pretty nice receiving core for Carson Wentz, who definitely had a lack of weapons in Philadelphia, so getting him some weapons in Indianapolis would certainly be a nice change of pace for Carson Wentz. At 22, this is where I have Farley going. Titans traded away Adoree Jackson, didn't re-sign Desmond King, so their secondary is kind of in shambles right now, and I think getting Caleb Farley could certainly be well worth it if the risk doesn't, happen and the reward does happen, because it's a high risk, high reward situation right now. If he is back to his full potential after the back surgery, then Caleb Farley would be the biggest steal of the draft at 22. If he's healthy, he's a top 10 prospect. So the Titans, again, taking a swing here, and if they hit it, it's an out of the park hit, and if they miss it, it's a strikeout. So I think that Caleb Farley, one of the riskiest picks in the draft, but the Titans, need secondary, and if he falls to 22, why not take him? At 23, I don't think Jason Owe is the best edge rusher left. I think Azeez Ojulari is better. I think even you could argue Joseph Osai is better. I know a lot of people are high on Kwity Paye. I'm personally not. But Jason Owe in Saleh's scheme is something that just makes way too much sense to me, because the athleticism is there. He hasn't been playing, organized football for all that long. Got better and better each season at Penn State, and now you put him in a system with one of the best defensive coaches in the NFL, in Robert Saleh, and get just this athletic pass rusher that this guy knows how to develop. I think it would be the best fit ever in New York, and I'm a huge fan of this fit. I think you can hear it by what I keep saying, but the Jets do need an edge rusher. You got to get someone alongside Lawson, who I thought was a great signing for them in free agency. And again, Saleh is just such a good coach that I think the development here of Jason Owe could be one of the scariest things, and he could be the best defensive player when it's all said and done out of this class, just because of his athleticism at the edge position. At 24, this is the running back spot. Sorry, Steelers. I know you probably don't want it, but when it's, when you look at the draft board, sure, you could go tackle, replace Villanueva. You could even go center here, maybe an interior like Landon Dickerson here to, replace Pouncey. But I think that with the cornerbacks all off the board, they go Najee Harris, the running back out of Alabama. He's a really fun prospect, does everything right. I think the thing that's most underrated about him is his pass catching ability. He's great out of the backfield in the passing game. I think the emphasis is going to be focused on the running game, so when you have a great running back trio like the Steelers have right now, a really young running back trio right now, if you draft Najee Harris, I think Benny Snell could fit into this nicely, Najee Harris could fit into it nicely, and then the guy that drafted out of Maryland, I think it's McFarland, also fits into it nicely. So a good trio of young running backs in Pittsburgh if they go the Najee Harris direction, and obviously Najee Harris would be the lead back in that, and a really good prospect for Pittsburgh. At 25, this is obviously via that Rams trade for Jalen Ramsey, and the Jaguars did a really good job at free agency this year. Didn't make any big-time signings, but addressed a lot of positions that needed to be addressed. And I think Trayvon Moehrig addresses that safety position, which I felt was a little under-addressed by the Jacksonville Jaguars in free agency. Would have loved to see them go after a free agent safety, but, the class was a little weak. Marcus Williams got franchise tagged, and obviously John Johnson signed with the Browns. So I think Trayvon Moehrig here is a really good pickup. A really fun prospect. He's a little undersized, but he's a hard hitter. Can play in the nickel if you need him to. Great athlete and a good pickup here for Jacksonville. At 26, this is the Azeez Ojulari spot. I'm a huge fan of Azeez. I think he's the best edge rusher in the class, aside from Jalen Phillips. I think it's 1A and 1B, though. Really, really fun prospects. Azeez Ojulari just gets after the quarterback, and pairing him alongside Myles Garrett, even though Azeez is a little undersized for 4-3, I think is still a really good pick and a player that can come in and make an immediate impact on the Browns' defense. At 27, this is the Rashad Bateman spot. Sure, you could go edge, but I think, the Ravens do need a receiver with a big catch radius. I think they addressed it kind of nicely with Sammy Watkins, but I think Rashad Bateman is kind of like Justin Fields, where people thought he was a little overrated, and it's gotten to the point where people thought he was so overrated that he's now underrated, and he's a really, really good player. If you want to watch the podcast, me and Max talked about this a bit. He's a Ravens fan. But he's basically mini slant boy is what I call him, because he does the exact same things that Michael Thomas does. He's really, really good at route running, especially in the short and intermediate routes. Gets open, has great hands, has that big catch radius, can box out corners, and I think that's exactly what a guy like Lamar Jackson needs, because if you think Lamar Jackson is the most accurate quarterback, you're completely mistaken. He's not accurate. He just needs a receiver that has a bigger catch radius, can catch some of these balls that, Marquise Brown couldn't catch, or that Devin Duvernay is going to be able to catch. And I think Bateman in this offense is a good fit. At 28, this is kind of a pick that I have never seen before, but I kind of liked it. Getting your Trey Hendrickson replacement in Kwity Paye. I know a lot of people are high in Kwity Paye. I personally don't see it, but again, there's a lot of people smarter than me out there, so they're probably right. And Kwity Paye, the edge out of Michigan, to New Orleans to replace Trey Hendrickson, I think is a good pick. At 29, I think this, is not going to happen because the Packers don't draft receivers in the first round. But after Aaron Rodgers' success last year, why not get him another weapon to go alongside Devontae Adams, who's probably going to end up being triple team next year if you don't get a receiver to play alongside him. And Kadarius Toney could be that guy, a really dynamic playmaker. People talk about him and Elijah being gadget types. I think they're more pure receivers and underrated at that. Both of them are really good route runners. I talked about it with Elijah, and I think Kadarius is right there with him when it comes to route running, and has the ability after the catch too. He ran in the 4.3s as well. Another great athlete, but I think it's a good pickup for Green Bay. At 30, another running back going here. There's really no one for the Bills to reach on. If they still needed a linebacker, if Matt Milano is let go, then I think this would be the perfect spot. Getting maybe a Jabril Cox, a Jamin Davis, even a Zaven Collins could be worth it. Edge could also be worth it here. But I think Travis Etienne is a really good player, someone that can come in and play right away for the Bills. I think Singletary, showed flashes his rookie season, but last year kind of proved that he wasn't the prospect that they hoped he would be. And Zach Moss kind of falls in that category of just being a power back, someone that they're going to bring in goal line packages. I think you're at the point with the Bills where you're like, okay, we're going to have to compete with the Chiefs somehow. How do we keep improving our offense, keep making our offense more dynamic? And I think Travis Etienne certainly helps out in that role. At 31, this is the Jamin Davis spot. The guy that can run with the likes of Darren Waller, can run with the likes of Noah Fant, Albert Okwuegbunam, the athletic tight ends in the AFC West Division. And I think Jamin Davis fills that role nicely for the Chiefs, who really needed that interior linebacker. He's another really fun prospect, someone that's been a fast riser throughout this draft process, and I think it's a fun pickup here for the Chiefs. Sorry, if you hear that blowing outside, I hope you don't, but if you do, that's on me. At 32, we have Gregory Rousseau, the edge rusher out of Miami. I think this is a great pick for the Bucs right now because they can play him at interior defensive line. He showed the flexibility to do that at Miami last year, so he can rotate in with Ndamukong Suh right now, play alongside Vita Vea, and then obviously Jason Pierre-Paul is going to be around forever, so once he retires or gets released from the team, then Gregory Rousseau fits perfectly in that role to play alongside Shaq Barrett. So I think this is a really good and smart pickup for the Bucs here, getting a player that's dynamic, a guy that had 15.5 sacks his freshman season, and obviously opted out last year, but I think he's ready for the NFL. I think he's another player that's getting so underrated at this point that getting him in the back half of the first round or the early second round would be a hell of a steal. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's mock draft. Hope you liked it. If you did like it, leave a thumbs up on the video. And if you want to see more draft content, please subscribe. Let's get to that 1,000 subs mark. And again, check out the podcast. Take it easy, guys. Peace.